Hey guys, how you going? Skypilot here. Parcel time. You got it. The Flywoo racing drone. Not the Explorer. This is the Explorer. The six-bladed beast with Crossfire RX. Let's open her up, quickly see what's inside. It's going to be quick. You get some props. You get 3 bags of props, which is 12 props in total, which is pretty cool. You get some stickers, information manual, telling you not to spin the motors without the props on or you'll burn out the motors, which is pretty cool. And you get a battery strap. You get a nice 5.8 right-hand circular polarized antenna there, which is pretty decent for your long-range VTX. You get some normal nuts and bolts and bits and pieces and that sort of hoo-ha. A couple of straws for your XM Plus. A gift, which is a little spanner. And how fast was that? Nicely packaged. The QC of Flywoo is awesome. Nice tight plastic wrap there, which we rip off. And there we have it, guys. A couple of tags sticking out. One's a power supply for your HD recorder, and the other one is the wiring loom for your XM Plus or your TBS Crossfire, etc. Just get a load of that 6-in-1 ESC, guys. What a masterpiece. The first thing we need to do, guys, is get our antenna sorted, so let's go and fit them on. Carefully let it turn the way it wants to turn, just so that UFL connector doesn't pop out of its seat. Next thing is to put our TBS up front, and luckily we have a TPU mount included in this kit, which sits up the front here with our Immortal antenna. So obviously we don't need all this wiring, and we need to do a little bit of soldering. Okay, so that's my TBS mount up the front there. You do need to actually unplug it from the receiver itself so that you can squeeze it through the hole and manipulate it in place and follow it through to the back there, but all good. Ideally what I like to do is to tie it to the top of the frame stack here underneath, so it's out of the way of all the other electrical components in case it gets a little bit warm. Just underneath the Dave C here I think is a good spot for it. So let's get it soldered up and let's get it into place. Okay, so that is the Crossfire receiver wired up. I will leave a link in the description and also a picture up on the screen there, just showing how they explain the Crossfire wiring. They do mention the TX goes to TX and RX goes to the RX, so don't get them mixed up, because generally it's RX to TX, TX to RX. So if you find that your Crossfire unit's powering on and binding, however your receiver's not working and it's not talking to the motors in Betaflight, that's probably your problem. Make sure that you have your receiver set to 12 channels, otherwise you're not going to have the telemetry screens that you need for this unit. Go to your Crossfire, select the XF Nano RX. What you need to do is to ensure that you have 12 channels open rather than the factory 8 which the Nano will put out. So go to your XF Nano RX on your Crossfire, select General at the top there, and you will see a list of settings. The top one is mode, so make sure you have that on. I'm not too sure if you can see that, probably can't, but make sure you have it on 12 channels, which is right at the top there, instead of the factory 8 channels. otherwise you're going to miss out on a couple of telemetry screens. We are good to go. What I'm going to do now is I will skip forward, put some heat shrink plastic molding around my receiver now that I know everything is good. Put it back together, run through the Betaflight settings, and let's get some props on. All back together, all sorted. The battery leads nicely supported in case of a crash there, so they don't rip the wires out of the flight controller, which is always handy. Got my Nano up on the roof there, nicely out of the way. Over to Betaflight. Okay, so once you have connected to Betaflight, these are the screens you should be seeing if you have the analog version like myself. UART 1 for your receiver. UART 2 is set for the GPS at 9600 baud, and soft serial is set for your IRC Tramp VTX. So while we're talking about the VTX, let's go straight down to the video transmitter. I do love the flywheel setup. They've got it all ready for you here. So I've selected Raceband channel 8, power max, and if you see here, the max value is 600, which is the highest VTX setting for this hexacopter. You will see over here, device ready no. That's simply because I don't have a battery plugged in at the moment. So that is the VTX taken care of. In our configuration, I haven't touched any of this yet. I will have a look and see if these are the best settings after I've had a fly. We've got D-Shot 300, motor stops on, 5.5 motor idle, 8K, 2K, not too sure about that. Serial base, crossfire of course. Check, check, check. Have GPS turned on. The GPS isn't lit up the top here. It certainly won't be until we plug in our LiPo, then you'll see the GPS light up. I'll just turn that off because it's really loud. Okay, GPS, NMEA and auto config, that's all factory out of the box. Everything's selected there as normal. Failsafe, we are going to stage 2 of course, which is going to be GPS, allow arming without fix. I'll turn that on for testing, but that needs to be off, and I like to find at least 6 satellites before it allows me to arm. Altitude mode I have at maximum, and there goes my beeper. And security checks, I set those to fail-safe only. So just make sure your auxiliary 8 RSSI is set to set and change to the 1500 to 1000. So what that will mean is if you do have a fail-safe, your value will drop down to 0% rather than staying at the last known value before fail-safe. Another thing I noticed was GPS rescue here. Out of the box it comes with allow arming without fix to be turned on. So what that means is you can arm your quad like you would arm any other quad that doesn't have any GPS rescue. There's no waiting for satellites and all that sort of hoo-ha. However, be mindful, like I've said before, if you do arm it and you don't have that minimum satellites, GPS rescue will not be available. So I actually like to have that off. Do a hot start of the GPS out in the field with a power bank and wait for those 5 satellites and then take off. So I think, well, what's the point in having a long range if you're not going to fly a long range? So I like to select that one to be off. So maximum altitude, so that's the altitude that it will return to home at. initially when a failsafe is kicked in. That way you will avoid trees and all that, trees and buildings and everything that you may have passed. And my sanity check is failsafe only. That's all pretty standard there, everything's running well. Down in the modes, I've got my GPS rescue, I've got my beeper, so that's actually 2 beepers, and the standard arm angle and horizon. Nothing to do in adjustments, servos. GPS still currently looking, which I won't find whilst I'm inside. Motors, if you want, just check the motor spin direction here before you put the props on. Always handy. On screen display, I haven't touched this yet, but straight away I can see there's a heck of a lot going on here. So I will play around with this and set it up to how I want to set mine up, so I'm not completely confused with what I'm looking at. That's all fairly personal, that stuff there. Okay, these are the post-flight stats I like to have on my screen at the end of a flight. So maximum altitude, flight distance, flight time in total, home distance maximum, link quality, RSSI minimum, RSSI dBm minimum, maximum speed and timer. You can play around with your LEDs if you like. And we are pretty much really good to go. So that brings us to the end of my LiPo being charged. That brings us to the end of Betaflight setup. Let's put those props on and see how this hexacopter flies. Excellent, so that's Betaflight in a nutshell, guys. I have my 854S on the roof there. Props are on. If you want to have a quick squiz at the configuration of the props, make sure they go on the correct way or you will have a significant amount of trouble. And you can just hear that beeper going now as I've disconnected the battery, and there's a nice little light underneath as well, which is really cool. So like I said, to turn it off, top left there, press it in for 3 seconds and that will disable it. Let's not forget the screws and the props, and then we're going to take it out and we're going to check out that GPS, have a fly, do some testing, have some fun. There we have it, gang. The Flywoo Hex Explorer, hexacopter, 6-bladed beast. So smash that thumbs up. Next video will be of full flight. I'm going to try out that GPS, see how well it works. I'll do some comparisons with the Flywoo Explorer quadcopter as well and see how they compare, but I'm pretty keen to see how this 6-bladed beast goes. Thanks for dropping by, guys. Drop me any comments, smash that thumbs up, that would be much appreciated. Let's go see how this thing flies.